that's looking good. And we'll have the lovely big hind legs here. So now we're going to do the legs and the arms. I'm going to do like the front paws first. And we're going to have two of these like this. And we'll just anchor it to the wool. Don't worry about the shoulders and the hips. At the moment we're just going to do the paws. Now for some animals you need like a pipe cleaner armature for some of these filtered animals, but I do this some beautiful unicorns and they definitely need an armature to stay stable, but for the bunny that's not necessary. Okay, so yeah, I just folded that back there. Just roll it. Okay, and this is another little trick just to get the paws. And then I like to do 3 little things there. Let me do the next one. So that's the paws, and then we'll do the legs. In fact, if you just fold it over like that, obviously the feet are going to be a bit bigger. You can roll and go backwards and forwards with the needle as you roll. That can be one way to knit the fibres together when you're doing limbs without having to stab all the way through to the block. But you also want it to be like a paw, so you don't want it completely round. And then okay, so this one is just a little bit too small. Just going to add a little bit of extra wool here to make that paw stand out a bit better. Okay. Because they're toes, they do tend to splay out. So when you're doing the toes, start at the tip of the paw and then just take that line back and then do the other one like that. So you come towards the limb. There we go. Okay, so we've got 2 legs and 2 paws. Let's just have a little look at so the leg is here, and we're going to join that up with a nice big chunky hind leg, and the paw is here, and that's there. That's quite good. Maybe do a little bit more of cinching in the wool there, just so that you have that cute little paw hanging over a bit. Yeah, that's good. Now, I have some core wool here. Core wool is when it's all been chopped up This is actually Wool Cool, it's called, and it got given to me the other day, and because it was part of packaging inside a parcel, which is really funny. But it works a treat for the bunny. If you don't have any wool cool, you can do the hind legs with about that much. Let's get 2 pieces the same size. That's roughly where we want to be. And we're going to shape that like that and just integrate this little paw in there. Now you can attach this first and then manipulate the wool, which is what I'm going to do, and then shape the hind leg once this is attached. So you want to keep the paw sideways on, and then just, you want to also leave some of this so that you can attach it without it being too distinct. In fact, you know what you can do with one of your spare needles? You can just anchor the leg in there so that it doesn't move, and that way you get a really good secure way of doing this bunny leg. Now I like to make this hind leg really quite chunky. It gives the rabbit just like that, but it's also got this lovely sort of sitting on its haunches, which is adorable, and that's just what bunnies do. So we're going to leave these bits so that we can attach them on to the rest of the body. We're going to make this like, I'm just going to use a few more needles to make it go a bit more quickly. And that's going to basically fit around onto the rest of the body. Let's do the other one. Here is for a 15-centimeter high rabbit. Mine, this one here is going to be a little bit bigger, so it goes like this. Okay, so we're going to add this lovely colour here to the bottom of the paws and the legs, and just tease those fibres out a bit. The other side. It's really just a hint. It's going to be sitting down anyway, so you're not really going to see this. It's more just a suggestion of what's there. And then we're going to colour the rest of the leg when it's actually on the body, I think. Remember to keep the paw facing down. I'm going to attach the hind legs to the body. Okay, so we could do a little less of that. All right. Now the bunny is always going to be whiter on the stomach here, so we're going to keep that. But then we're going to attach this and add more layers of the wild colour. Bunch this in like this so that you're really getting a nice little hip. But the good thing about spreading this out means that you don't get like a really obvious join. Our job now is going to be blending. You can see from the top here, it's coming along really nicely, but we want this to be blended into the back. And of course it doesn't go straight down, it curves under, so I'm just going to use 3 needles here, and that's the little paw heel. Once we've actually got both legs attached, we can start to really look at the side profile of the bunny, because we're going to want this lovely curve to go like this. That to me is a really, really pleasing round bottom that you can hold in your hands, and it can sit nice and steadily on the table or on your display. And the tail, the little tail will also be a little sort of, not counterweight, but it will provide more security too. So I don't have the tummy sitting directly on the table. I have the legs basically as the two stabilizing. It's like a bit like a tripod, and then the tail adds the third stabilizer. You just hold the paw in 2 hands, in 2 fingers, and then okay. All right, let's do that. Let's take some of this out. Now let's attach this one. Just want to make sure that they're both pretty. You know, some people, some bunnies you see are like this, that is adorable. Some like you can cross them over. This is certainly a bit more stable, having them slightly out or ahead in front. I'm just going to anchor this in with another needle, just temporarily until, but watch out you don't get yourself on the other side. Okay, and then put a bit more of there. So what I like is to try and get a smooth body here rather than have a big chunky leg, because then it looks like it's sort of been attached. Keep checking where you are at the front, where you are at the back. Okay, and then the back. Okay, that's good for now. Actually, let's just give it a little bit more. Make it a bit more compact. Now the tail is going to really help to stabilize it once the tail is on. The size of your bunny is can still be reduced quite considerably at this point, particularly if your wool hasn't been overworked. You can influence the size of it. This a good. You do have to put a bit of elbow grease into the core of the body sometimes, particularly when you're working with something that's a bit larger than the palm of your hand, in order to have the right impact on your display. Okay, so we now have the legs attached. By the way, I have my needles on this tool at least. It has like a sort of 3 that are in a curve, and it can be quite nice to go around joins and curves using this. I have another tool that is more straight, and that's also good, but if you have one of these tools that have these curves in it, I think this one's from the States where I've been living. Okay. We're now going to add a bit more colour. Just almost carding the wool here. Just get it nice, all the fibres going in the right direction. You'll find though, if they get too short, it's very difficult to pull them apart. Okay, and what we're going to do now is just put a little bit around the legs here, like this. Just very lightly tap the fibres onto the surface until it's all sort of spread evenly. Otherwise you'll end up with lots of little pokey holes. This would be a good opportunity to use the 40 gauge needle, but for the sake of my students in the workshop that I'm doing this for, I've said that you can do this with just one needle, So if that's all you've got, I'll show you that it can still look gorgeous. Okay. And you want the inside of the bunny leg to have that lovely white fluffy colour. You don't want to sort of get too, I mean that's good there. Do the other side. Alright, oh, we've got one leg higher than the other there. It's a good reminder to really check. Okay. Let's just get this down a bit. At the back. Keep those paws so that the toes are in the right place. It's quite important when you're needle felting that when it gets quite physical like this, because it's a bigger piece, just to stretch your neck out, roll your shoulders, because it's quite easy to forget how you're tensing your body up in order to use your arms in this way. So take care of yourself. Take a break if necessary. You can always pause the video and come back. That's partly the point of doing this. So I like to put a little bit of grey fluff as well, just in the ears, just to make them more tufty. It's really just to integrate everything together so that it looks a bit more artistic. A tiny bit more in here. There we go, and then fold that back. And you again use the needle to coax the fibres out. And that just looks really, really sweet. Now, how are we doing here with the head? We can attach the head now, I think. Once we've attached the head, we can shape the back. And the arms, attach the arms. But for now, let's do this. So we're going to just tease some of this wool open a bit. And the little collar that we've got on the back here, that we added earlier, we're just going to secure that a little bit and get underneath the chin a bit. At this point, we're just wanting to attach. Don't worry about the shape, just want to make sure that it's attached nice and firmly. Mind your fingers if you're going needle felting towards your hand. it's actually attaching really well, just with the relatively loose wool on the top of the body. Okay. Just get in there and just try and get it attached as best as possible. You can even go further down the body and up, and that will draw the fibres up from the centre of the body shape. Okay, that's good. Now, you're not going to see too much of what's going on underneath here, but it's nice to just make sure that it's not looking too stitched on. So just work it a little bit. Okay. All right, and now we're ready to put the arms on. Before we put the arms on though, we are going to just add a little bit of colour. I just wanted to make sure that we had a good size of arm. Very sweet. All right. Now I'm just going to do this before I add the arms. Go back to your stencil and just have a look here and see. You really want to get this shape here so it's nice and curved. And once you've got that shape in the back, it'll be more obvious where the arms are positioned. Okay, that's looking good. Just, we're tucking in this heel now. Do it on the other side too. The reason why we do this before adding the arms is because as much as a couple of centimetres can actually come off the height of this. And if you add the arms too early, they can end up looking very awkward and gangly. So we just need to get the final posture of the rabbit before we add the arms. And of course, before we add the arms, we're going to put the colour on anyway. But if your bunny isn't sitting properly on the surface, just take a little bit of time to stabilise it. Little paws. Okay. I'm just going to add a little bit more here. It'd be a good idea to do that before putting the colour on. This is all going to be covered with grey, but the front of the paw is actually going to stay white. So it's going to be a little bit like that. There's a lot to be said for being really methodical. It can save a lot of time. But it's also, the whole thing is about learning what works for you. Okay. These are going to go on here like this. Paws facing down. The shoulders are really slim. But before we do that, we're going to add the body colour. And this is what we've got here. So let's do that now. I'm going to do a little bit of this wool, cool wool. It's very bulky, so it's going to add more bulk to the bottom here, which is sort of what we want. But if you don't have any of this, just use like a grey crimpy wool. Just sort of pinning it into place. And we're going to leave the space for the arms. This stuff is very, very chopped up and fibrous, so your block is going to get really covered with chopped up wool. Okay, yeah, just keep checking how your bunny is sitting. All right, let's get these little arms on. Now, we're looking at this area here, needs to be blended into the shoulder. And remember, keeping the paw down. To really also just think about what position at this point, what position you want the arm to be in. I quite like them going down like this, but you can also have them maybe coming up so that they're offering an egg, or I've got enough wool up here just to blend underneath the chin, so I might just do that just to make it look quite seamless. These little tips here, for a bunny particularly, they're so furry. You want to avoid as many joins showing as possible. And by keeping the wool kind of loose over the joins, you create the illusion of that sort of fluffy white fur. Now here, for example, this is not where I would want any more of this, so take this out. Some of the images I've shown you, have a look as well at how the fur presents itself. It's with these wild bunnies, they have this lovely white fur front, and that's really nice to honour that as well. Even though we're not trying to sort of make a completely authentic replica, it's nice to understand what the colouring of the bunny is. Okay, so they hardly have a shoulder. Their shoulders are tiny compared to their hind legs. Now the paws tend to sort of like sit down the way. They're sort of alert and their paws are really cute. So make sure that you've got the position of your paws where you want them before you completely anchor the arm in. And then we're going to cover the arm a bit as well with the grey. So a little bit of this and a little bit of this. But like with any of this, just the key is just to keep it sort of simple. Use what you've got, and it's just we're going to just add a little bit more under here. That's going to be covered anyway, so don't worry too much about that. Just going to keep the white underneath the chin. I'm going to do this one now. Okay, so you level them up. Spread this around so that you can do that little furry neck. Tease the wool out. Both sides are relatively even, and his little neck here needs a little bit more connecting. Okay. Okay. We'll do this like we did on the other side. I'm going to take a little bit of this. Now you can also do this before you attach the arm. When you're blending these colours, it can be quite nice just to get a sense of where you're at before you put the colours on. But the other side of it is it can be a bit more tricky to do it when the arm is on, so maybe try one way first, and then when you do the next one, try it the next way. Okay, that's looking good. The back of the head is definitely going to be camouflaged so that any birds of prey or whatever have a bit more difficulty seeing it. So you want a little bit of white showing around the jawline, But when it comes to the back here, we're going to put a darker grey on there, like this. We'll do grey, and then we'll do a little bit of the other colour if we want. And this top coat is much finer to cover that wool cool. It covers up the neck and keeps it nice and fluffy. And then bunnies do have like little delicate undercolours that are just so beautiful. The colouring is so beautiful. So we'll do a gentle fade in of the greys and the grading of colour there. Little things like that really make a difference. And it's nice just to see how the wool goes down like that, a bit like a bunny. You can just drag the needle down a bit. Let's get that curve in there. This is a good piece for the tail. Tail's quite nice to be left fluffy like that. Just a few little stabs. We can connect that on. Shape it a little bit, you know, like a lovely almond. There's a lovely little thing I learned about the bunny tail, and that is when the bunny has been spotted by a predator and the bunny sort of understands that he's being hunted. The bunny runs away and his tail goes up like that, and then when he darts in a different direction, the tail goes down, and so it's almost like the flag disappears, and the predator, it takes a couple of seconds for the predator to readjust its vision because the camouflage is so good. And it's those 3 or 4 seconds, those 2 or 3 seconds that make all the difference. And that can be what saves the rabbit. So these little tails are really important. Let's make sure that we've got the little white flash underneath. And then the camouflaged top. Nature is just so amazing. I don't know if any of you have heard of Diana Cooper. I've been following and working with Diana Cooper for, gosh, 25 years. And she has the most adorable animal oracle cards, and the oracle cards are just gorgeous, and they show like the energy of the animals and what archangels work with the animals, and sometimes what some of these animals just are not of Earth at all. They originate from different stars, like the dolphins. And yeah, I can't recommend them enough. They've been quite an inspiration for me to do this. I make lots of unicorn commissions for altarpieces and stuff. And the unicorn energy is just so pure and perfect for these times that we're in. But like with any animal, the key is to really, to capture it, you have to appreciate the anatomy. And even though unicorns obviously aren't in a physical body, they are basically ascended horses. So to capture a felted unicorn, you really have to look at the anatomy of a horse and take your time to tune into that, just the magnificence and the majesty of that form. And it's quite something when you're felting a unicorn. I certainly feel like I go into a whole other sort of state of consciousness. It's like these unicorns just they come. It's really, and like with any animal, when you tune into it, there's so much appreciation for its energy. I think one of the gifts of doing needle felting or any form of art or craft even is to just appreciate the gift of being here on this earth and all the beauty that nature and Mother Earth has to offer us while we're here. In fact, I made myself a yogi tea just before I came up to carry on this video, and it had a lovely message. And the message, what was it? It was, this life is a gift. So beautiful and so true. One of the things that is so lovely about needle felting is that it gives people the opportunity to gather, and when we can't gather during a lockdown, we find other ways to gather. And that is basically another gift, is to gather online. I never thought I'd be saying that, being a Steiner mum and all that, but you have to just celebrate the gifts and embrace the upgrades and adapt, just like nature, just like rabbits do. And keep evolving. Okay, so let's put a little bit more grey around here. Let's just get him nicely blended. I don't know why I'm calling you a him, but you obviously are, otherwise I'd be calling you a her. So it's nice to have the natural white coming through. It just allows the bunny to breathe a bit, and just blend that. It's just sort of shading, really. Shading with wool. Now you want this join to really be seamless. That sometimes can be a bit tricky, so the key is to get the position right, and then, okay, let's anchor you in here. This is where a needle tool can actually come in handy, because you can really give it some welly. And then let's put a little bit more of this on here, I think. Just cover up that join. You want it to be furry. You don't want to see the joins on the arms. You can also just ruche up the wool. Now, this is a sort of 2 to 3 hour project at least. So take care of your body. If you need to stop, stretch, leave it, come back to it the next day. Listen to what your body needs. It's just needing a little bit more elongation here. Shoulders back. Really take a look at the research photos I sent you so that you can either print them out for the actual workshop so that you can refer to them, or have them on a device that you can refer to, because that will make all the difference to the final integrity of your shape and also the colouring. Just need to do a little bit of grey on this arm. Shade of grey. Let that fluff up like that. Okay. So you want to sort of keep the inside of the rabbit here. And then blend it around the tummy. Okay, a little bit more of this cool stuffing. There's a bit more white on there. And then, last but not least, I think a little bit of extra effect. And some of this brown up down by the bottom of the tail. It's nice to go up the back or down the back just to get that sense of the fur coming down. Doesn't really matter which way you do it, as long as it's running in one direction. Just blend those a bit. Around the haunches. Okay. Really attach the tail. Sorry, bunny. Okay, so here we go. Another little Easter bunny. Play around with the fur a bit. Use your finer needles if you have them. There's two lovely Easter bunnies. This one's a bit bigger, this one's a tiny bit smaller, and the ones we'll be doing in the workshop will again be smaller still, and that means they'll be a bit more quick to make. Excellent, happy felting. Bye.